welcome to all of you for a short Cabinet agenda that I'm sure has the potential to go on for a while. First of all, I'll start with the webcasting announcement and to remind members that this meeting will be webcast and sorry, excuse me, let me start again, that's a bad start. I would like to remind everyone present this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of subsequent repeated viewing with copies of the recording being made available for those that request it. By being present at this meeting, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image and this will result in the image becoming part of the broadcast. You should be aware that this may infringe your human and data protection rights. If you have any concerns, please speak to the webcasting officer. And members, it's a pleasure to remind you again, if you are speaking, to turn your microphone on, and when you finish, to turn it off. Thank you very much. Okay, moving onwards. Have we got any apologies for absence?
No apologies, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest from anybody? No, okay. Minutes of the last meeting, can I take those as being agreed? Thank you very much. Reports of portfolio holders, if any? Councillor Avey.
Thank you, Leader. I attended a waste management board today and just to alert members of Cabinet and other members that Biffa at the moment are looking at driver shortages caused by general lack of drivers and also by the pingdemic that we have at the moment. I think that they're managing to cope with the situation. However, I would think by the middle of August it may get worse, in which case we may be faced with a decision about reducing services. Obviously, if we come to that, I will come back and report accordingly, but they are doing a good job of coping with a shortage of drivers that they have at the moment. I think in other areas such as Harlow, they've already reduced services because of that self-same issue.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Avey, and thank you for bringing it to our prompt attention this evening. Obviously, it's something we'll have to keep in mind. I have to say, Biffa in the first part of the pandemic did a brilliant job of keeping everything running while others were failing. So I think we should bear that in mind as well. And it's obviously in all members' interest that we keep a watchful eye on this. Councillor Murray.
Thank you for that, Chairman. I'd like to thank the portfolio holder for that, because that's obviously come as a bit of a shock. Because it's a frontline service, absolutely the key frontline service. So I'm sure he will, but can I just be assured that all members will be kept up to speed in real time, because it is the frontline service, and our phones and our emails will be ringing like mad if it doesn't operate in the way it should. So if we could know in real time, that would be really important for all 58 of us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Murray, and I think that goes without saying, Councillor Avey, doesn't it? That's why you've brought this before us this evening.
Indeed, Chairman, and I will update real time if there are any problems.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Avey, it may just be worth getting someone to drop a note to our local MP so that she's aware of the situation, that there could be a problem. Let's hope there isn't, but nationwide we have a pandemic issue with staff going off. I think as a local authority we have a number of staff currently in isolation and also with positive COVID tests, so we have to be mindful of that at all times. It is an ongoing issue, and wherever possible I think we should be mindful to keep meetings which are not voting meetings on Teams and away from the council. So if we can avoid public meetings we should. Whilst we all want to get back to normal, as I said earlier on, and the important thing now is learning to move forward. It is baby steps to a degree, and we have to make sure we do the right things for our residents, for our staff, and most importantly, to make sure that we all stay safe and well through this summer, so we can move forward and enjoy the newfound freedoms that we cherish so much. Okay, thank you for that. Any other members of the Cabinet with any reports? No, not at this stage. Any public questions?
No public questions, Chairman.
And no one wishes to address the Cabinet?
No.
There is no report of overview and scrutiny tonight. I've had apologies from Councillor Sartin for that reason. So then we move on to item 8, which is progress with the Portfolio Holder Advisory Group on air pollution mitigation strategy. Councillor Bedford.
Thank you very much, Leader. The report is quite full, it's quite detailed, there's a lot of information in there. I would just like to add, towards the end of the report, actually there's some key points that I think need pulling out from the report. And since the report has been done, there's been a few updates to what progress has been. So the latest figures from the government on ultra-low emission vehicle ownership is that EFDC has strengthened its position, and it's now the second highest district in terms of ultra-low emission vehicles on the roads in Essex. And the Loughton area is showing the highest ultra-low emission vehicle growth since Q3 of 2020. Initial surveys of council car parks have been undertaken to establish their electrical supply capability for taking electric vehicle charging points. Further to that, we're working with electric charging point suppliers on the introduction of rapid charging points. It is anticipated that the first site will be in Oakwood Hill, the Oakwood East car park, and we're aiming to have this operating in time for the introduction of the extension to the London ultra-low emission zone, the ULEZ, in October this year. Before everybody panics, it's not because we're part of the ULEZ, it's because ideally if any of the electric vehicles that are going into London drop out of London, then they can drop off the motorway and recharge at a point very close. Our initial focus for supporting local businesses is with the local black cab operators who are based in the district to support and take up of electric vehicles, recognising that many operate within the area that will be covered by the London ultra-low emission zone extension. We are working with Essex County Council to encourage the introduction of electric charging points in lampposts, with a focus on areas where off-street parking is lower, to widen opportunities for residents who don't have garages and driveways to be able to access charging points easily. We're also supporting the DART 87, the Demand Responsive Bus Service, following the removal of the regular bus service to Princess Alexandra Hospital from Loughton. We are establishing proactive working arrangements with parish and town councils on addressing both the climate change and the air pollution issues. We will be developing a new approach to car parking charging in council-owned car parks. Officers are currently developing a business case for the electrification of the council's refuse fleet. And we are encouraging TfL to look at to roll out further charging points at underground stations over and above the one that has been installed at Thaden Boyce. We are undertaking an awareness campaign starting in September and linking it with the consultation on the council's climate change action plan. The consultation recognises that many of the actions to respond to the climate changes will also address air pollution issues. But most importantly, there will be the establishment of an officer technical group to inform the development and implementation of the interim air pollution mitigation strategy actions and measures, and tap into the technical knowledge to keep abreast of the emerging air pollution mitigation initiatives. I hope that helps bring members up to date. And after the extensive report, which has covered a lot of the issues that have been raised on the Portfolio Advisory Group, I hope that you agree that this is moving forward. And we must remember that we are an advisory group, we are not an action group. We can only put forward suggestions. And I must say that working with the other people on the group, it has been difficult at times because it's been in some cases it's been hard to get people to come up with ideas. But we're pushing those ideas, and every little bit of change will make a difference in the end. And as we can see, making people aware of the need to change the attitudes of people moving across the district, we are starting to see the implementation and the change to PHEV vehicles. Thank you, members. I'll take them to take questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Phillip.
Thank you. Can I welcome this report, Chairman, and encourage the portfolio holder to bring back reports on a regular basis going forward. I think this is definitely moving in the right direction. We possibly need to have the portfolio holder advisory group coming with some even more off-the-wall suggestions, because they may be the ones actually in the end that we can do something special with, and perhaps like the portfolio holder was saying, in terms of our leading role in ULEZ vehicles in Essex, perhaps we can come up with particularly innovative ways of dealing with air pollution that we can do, and certainly encourage. I'd like to hear a little bit more from the portfolio holder about how much work the City of London, the London Corporation, are putting into actually improving the air quality in the forest.
Thank you for that, Councillor Phillip. I can say that through the Portfolio Advisory Group, we've raised the issue around the car parking charges, and one of the proposals is to encourage people to go to totally electric vehicles. We was looking at whether or not we could bring in a zero charging car parks, which we thought would be quite a good idea for purely electric vehicles. PHE vehicles, which run on alternative fuels or electricity, they would not be getting free parking. But at the moment, I think there are some statistics out there showing that it's about a 60-40 split, so 60% of PHEVs compared to 40% of totally electric vehicles. And I think that we wouldn't lose too much money, plus it's a driver, it's the carrot and stick for people to change. Hopefully, the Corporation of London, when we had their last meeting with them, we raised this as an issue, and they said if we were committed to it, they would take that back to their representative bodies to discuss the possibility of making electric vehicles free in their car parks. Because as you know, Councillor Phillip, their car parks are not under our control, they are purely down to them. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other members of the Cabinet at this stage? Councillor Avey.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for my information, some of the ideas discussed during the aborted next planning application around Woodridden Hill and the junction with the M25, would they likely to be carried forward into this work? Because the no right turn into the forest seems to me absolutely sensible, given I got stuck in another traffic jam there the other day because people were turning right. Will any of those ideas come back in another form and be explored?
Thank you, Councillor Avery. I think that that's a very good, sensible approach in that we've got to start to make changes, and that's probably one that will come forward. I think it's in the actual interim air pollution mitigation strategy, and it's one that we should pursue to bring forward, because whether or not it's next that go onto that site, someone will be going on that site, and we do need to really reduce pressure on the junction at the bottom of Woodridden Hill.
Thank you very much. Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Bedford, for that report. I thought it was really comprehensive and really interesting, so thanks for the work that you and others have done on that already. In terms of local businesses, both small and larger, what work are we doing to engage with businesses to make sure they're adopting more greener practices, getting electric vehicles, and generally encouraging them to be more carbon neutral? Are we doing any work around that? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Whitbread. Yes, what we're trying to do there is through education. We are talking around signage across the district, doing news articles, making contact through our business organisations with businesses, giving them the opportunity. Now is the time for change. Don't leave it till 2025. You've got time now to plan your businesses, plan your changes, do your vehicle fleet, and gradually move over to the new vehicles as and when they're required. If we leave it till 2025, it's too late, because the monitoring will be going on during 2024, so we need to be moving now. And I think everybody in the PAG group is aware of the importance that we drive this forward. We don't just sit back and wait for businesses to knock on our door. We've got to knock on their door and say, you need to change.
Thanks again, Councillor Bedford. Councillor Whitbread, you want to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. This is a slightly unrelated question, but I know you have Essex County Council engaged. I wonder what work you've done with the Essex Climate Commission, which I should actually declare I am a member of. But have you been working with the Essex Climate Commission and looking at their recommendation to see how we can apply them on a smaller district-wide scale?
Thank you. I was invited to attend the Climate Commission meeting earlier this week, and whilst I'm off work, I actually sat in and listened to it. Very interesting. A lot of ideas coming forward, and I'm sure we'll pick up further ideas going forward again from that meeting, and work closely with the Essex County Councillors within our district to ensure that we drive it forward. I've also asked officers today to write to Lee Scott, which was done immediately this afternoon, asking him to bid for the additional funding from the government pot of money which is available before that pot dries up. We don't want to be last in the queue. We've got a very important role to play on the fringes of London, and we need additional funding. So we are driving that forward now. That money, that pot of money, hopefully will help us drive forward the electric vehicle charging points on the streets as soon as we can get them in.
Thank you. I didn't see Councillor Phillip wanted to come back.
Yes, just related to Councillor Bedford's previous answer, can I encourage him to write an article for our monthly business email that we send out around this? This would be a great way of getting out to our businesses. It's one of the reasons we have our business newsletter. Let's make use of it.
Great. Thank you very much. Noted. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chairman. A number of points. This is the item that has driven me to the meeting tonight. We did car share, which was the appropriate thing to do. The first thing, responding to what the member said tonight, Councillor Bedford said tonight, that's excellent news about the increased use of low emissions, and that the Loughton area is one of the fastest growing areas for that. So that's excellent news. The second point I wanted to make, more general before I look at the report, is that it's excellent that we're now reached this stage and we're working together. But without going over history, and that would serve no purpose at all, this is the way we should have done it from the beginning. But we are where we are, and it's wonderful that that's how we're working, and good to receive this report. I do have a number of more detailed and specific questions. The paragraphs are mentioned, numbered, but on page 15 in the second paragraph, it says the council is already making significant progress, and it mentions some of the areas. I am aware of that progress in some of those areas, but I would like to know what progress we're making on safer cycling routes, because to my knowledge, and I don't know everything, and that's not particularly surprising. Some people say I know nothing, but I certainly don't know everything. I would be interested in what we would consider making significant progress on safer cycling routes are, because I couldn't point to that, so that's a detailed question. The last paragraph on page 15, when I was reading this report, I took strong objection to. Yes, I understand that the reports are written by officers, but I assume, as this is a report from the portfolio holder, he signs off any reports before it goes to the cabinet agenda. So I'm assuming that the portfolio holder signed off on this. And it talks about the planning portfolio holder has drawn together an advisory group to include opposition party members. Well, I mean, I can't speak for them, but I don't think they see themselves as opposition party members. I would have thought it's much more appropriate to use what is on point number 1 on page 16, which is a much better way of putting it. The group consists of representatives from. So I really don't want us to say that again. Let's not think of ourselves in terms of, majority group members and opposition party members, because that does no good to anyone. We work cooperatively when we can, and if there are differences, that's fine, there are differences. But let's use the terminology that is outlined, as I say, on point 1 on page 16. That's a much better way of putting it. I think there's just two other points I wanted to make. I would be very interested in exactly what this meant on page 17, the second bullet point above point number 9. I'll just read it, it's only a couple of sentences. Some improvements are already planned for the Roding Valley section with better signage and clearance of green material. Additionally, better promotion would increase more use of a lovely walking and running area. If it's talking about what I think it's talking about, that's obviously very much the ward that me and Councillor Brooks represent, or certainly a large section of the Roding Valley. So I would like some kind of information around that, not necessarily tonight, but if the portfolio holder can provide it. And then my final point is on paragraph 10 on page 18. I think that is an accurate summary of the position of the Corporation of London as I understand it. But I think it's probably also worth mentioning there, and members may be aware of it as well, that the corporation are using that charging tool to kind of encourage usage of the forest. So areas that are under most sustained use and therefore suffering are much more likely to have car parking charges, while areas where there's less environmental damage and they're hoping to divert people to those car parks. So they are actually using the charging policy as a way of environmentally improving the forest as well, by encouraging where people can park for free rather than where people have to pay for parking. And I do think that's a significant aspect of the charging policy that isn't really mentioned in part 10. I hope those comments have been useful, Chairman. They were meant to be.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Thanks for those questions and rather detailed response to the paper. I think there are a few things there I'll address straight away. The first thing is page 15, second paragraph, cycling routes, if we just go to that one. Second paragraph. We are actually talking around the area behind the Bank of England, which runs through, and if you are, and Councillor Brooks are interested, we did commission a short video clip which runs for about 3 minutes. We managed to get a drone footage of the area round down towards the motorway section, where we were able to identify that with some improvement to the foliage, cutting back of the foliage, improvements to the area where it crosses a stream, I believe, it would make it a much better route, more accessible to people. And we are interested in looking after the nature reserve at Roding Valley, and that is one of the additional improvements that we were proposing on top of the other improvements to Roding Valley, which includes better signage and access to the piece of artwork from the Green Art project about 20 years ago up at Thaden Boyce. So hopefully that covers that bit off, which also in a way leads on to your other question around hoping it was covering your area. So it does cover your area. And on paragraph, I think it's paragraph 10, City of London charging tool. Well, actually, if you're not aware, the Corporation of London will be charging in every car park that they own in the forest. And what they're doing is a slow progressive rollout. And they are starting, I think, in areas sort of like Chingford Plain, where they've targeted the large parking areas first. They'll be rolling that out across the district, and the problem they have to overcome is how, which we've already seen, how do they get an electrical supply that allows you to have a power signal to pay for the parking when you get to the forest? Because year after year we've asked them to improve and increase access to the forest or allow mobile phone masts or some way of communication. Well, they can't put in pay-as-you-go machines, so I believe their strategy is going to be that it'll all be done on an app. Well, obviously with an app you're going to need to have a phone signal, so they'll pick the easy areas to do first, Chingford Plain, etc., and then roll it out across the district. But we can help support that as well, which in the Portfolio Advisory Group, one of the things that we've put forward is that if people are going to park in the forest, we don't want the impact on the residents of Loughton and Buckhurst Hill. So one of the proposals going forward is at the moment, which needs consultation with local residents and the parking partnership team, is the fact that we were thinking around 7-day parking in those zones, so that at the moment, if you go down there on a Sunday, you still can't park. You can't get a parking space because everybody drives to the areas that abut the forest and take all the parking spaces from residents. So we feel that the Portfolio Group feels that by assisting and helping the residents of Loughton and Buckhurst Hill, we can still maintain their parking for them. It's being looked at. It will need further consultation. Initial resistance came from the parking group saying that we've only just brought in 2 of those parking zones. However, I stress the importance to the parking team that this does need an urgent review. It's no good waiting 3 years since that plan has been brought in, and they've accepted that that does need to be reviewed. So hopefully we can drive that forward, get the 7-day parking permits in place, support the residents of Loughton, who I'm sure welcome, or hopefully welcome, the additional parking restrictions that will be put in place so that they can have their family and enjoy their Sundays free as well. And then there's no reason for residents or for people visiting the forest to actually take up those spaces, because they'll have to pay for the car park wherever they go.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Apologies, sorry, out of the habit of press. Just two things really, and one is, you know, I very much welcome Councillor Bedford, the emphasis on cycling in this, and I know we've got a lot of dual-hatted county councillors as well. My experience is that in London, working there for 20 years, when more provision was made for cycles and people felt safer, more people actually took to the roads. And I think there's been this great surge in cycling since the last March. But it's still absolutely terrifying, to be honest, to cycle on the Epping New Road and a lot of our local roads. And people, lots of people say, I'd like to cycle to me when they see me on a bike, but we are terrified. And I think this is, I know this is a long-term thing, but we've seen how they've spent money in Colchester and Chelmsford. And I'm sure that there are a lot of bikes sitting in sheds that might come out a bit more if people felt a bit safer. And secondly, I welcome, you know, the thought of more electric cars, very much so. But I just want to say on behalf of some of my residents, having been looking at buying replacing my car, that for people without much money, this is absolutely out of the question for many people still. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks, for those 2 points that you've raised there. First of all, can I assure you that the Portfolio Advisory Group has raised the issue of the cycle routes. If you take Wakes Arms roundabout for starters, one side of the roundabout, the road is just wide enough to incorporate 2 cycle lanes, which I've been keeping an eye on every time I drive down through to Buckers Hill. And they are being used, that side of the roundabout. Whereas on the other side of the roundabout, which runs to Epping, they're not being used. So we are looking at trying to get funding from wherever we can get funding to improve those cycle routes. And I think if you actually go down to the section which runs from, I call it the Woodford Triangle on the green, down to Waltham Forest, you'll see that they've actually put a dedicated separation lane in now, which makes it safer for cyclists. And they've put some small concrete blocks in to separate them off completely. I think to do that we would need to invest a lot of money and we need slightly wider roads. All I can say at this point is that officers are looking at that, and whatever we can do to improve the cycle routes to and from, I call it Woodford, we will do our utmost to get that in place. The other point you made about electric vehicles, I understand that, I do get that. The biggest problem we face at the moment is not the cost of the electric vehicles, it's the fact that the chips that they put in the electric vehicles are not available. When the pandemic struck, a lot of people moved to home entertainment systems, and so the similar sort of chip setup was being used, and chip manufacturers moved from making chips for vehicles to making chips for game machines. And so there is now a worldwide shortage of chips for car manufacturers. And if you go into a car manufacturer to buy a car, they will tell you, well, at the moment we're not doing a production run, or we haven't got any of the top of the range vehicles, we don't have anything around. I recently tried to purchase a car and I was told that they haven't even started a production run because they can't get the chips to make the cars. Now that's very disappointing from our point of view, because obviously we're trying to drive forward the strategy of keeping, you know, ultra low emission zone vehicles in Epping Forest. But what I will say is that when they do come on stream, I think there'll be a mass flood of vehicles coming back online, which will enable us to move forward. The cost of electric vehicles is coming down now slowly when you can get them. And I've noticed now the second-hand values of some of the electric vehicles are coming down as well. Even some of our taxi cab drivers that I've noticed around the district are going over to Toyota Prius vehicles that have been manufactured in the last 2 or 3 years. They're not purchasing them new, but they're obviously buying them from private households that are upgrading to new ones. And so they're still getting good use out of the PHEV vehicles. So hopefully we can see that moving forward. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Bedford, can you, what level of engagement has your group had with counterparts at other neighbouring local authorities, which I'm sure are also developing similar types of strategies? Because although this area of concern obviously affects us and our residents, there's going to be a resultant from the other local authorities, and I'd be keen to see how we are developing upon that.
Thank you. We are doing that. We are engaging with other authorities, and one example of that I can give you is that we've been in touch with London Borough of Waltham Forest because we wanted an update on their city trees, and one thing that's coming out of that at the moment is the city trees don't look viable for us because they've put a couple in, one I think at Leytonstone Station and one other down in Walthamstow somewhere, and the one at Leytonstone died. And the reason that it died, I think, was purely down to the fact they forgot to water it. It's a moss structure that absorbs a lot of poisonous gases and emissions. But obviously working with other authorities is key to us, especially the likes of Redbridge, Waltham Forest, Enfield, and officers are engaged all the time. And we're sharing technology and advice. If they find something that they think is good, they will come to us, and if we ask them questions, they're responding to us. So I think that answers your question, but I don't know if Mr. Dorr, if you've got anything further to add on that.
Yes. There is a particular group that includes those, and also includes Natural England Corporation of London. We are sharing legal advice and other technical advice, and we are working as a group very purposely so that we take a kind of mini regional view of all of the issues and learn from each other, and indeed only pay solicitors once rather than 5 times.
Thank you very much. Any other members? Okay. Can I thank Councillor Bedford for bringing this report to us this evening? It shows the passion that he has for this subject, which I think is really important. There are a number of issues that we need to still address, and it's going to be an ongoing project. I would just like to draw to Councillor Bedford's attention. Last week I had the pleasure to launch Essex County Council's social value strategy and catalogue, which is the bedrock of their procurement policy now, remembering that the County Council does over £1 billion worth of contracts and commissioning across the county, and over 60% of that is within local businesses across Essex, and they've now introduced social value or increased the social value element to that, and they've added to that climate as a principle. And I would sincerely recommend that officers engage as we look at our own procurement policies to drive the best value we can from procurement, and look at a social value policy that includes the economic generation, including apprenticeships and opportunities for the local workspace, but also to look at the climate elements of that as well. So I would ask officers and members to do that. I'd also just like to touch upon a comment you made very early on during your presentation regards to the PAG, and I think it's done a brilliant job since it's come into being, and I think it is, Councillor Murray will be pleased to hear me say this, a powerful goodwill and consensus in order to try and address this. But you did say there wasn't much coming forward from members of the PAG. I know you have, because you keep sending me emails and telephone calls every night with different ideas as to what we could be exploring. Do you think there's a need for group leaders to start exploring who's actually on the PAG to make sure we've got the right people there? Because it really is important that the members engage. It's good leaving this to officers. None of us want to see the outcome that they have in London. We all want to see the forest protected, and we all want to see the best for our local communities and protecting residents. But that can only be done if we all engage. As Councillor Murray said, this shouldn't be about party politics. It's about what's best for local people. I have to say I was very disappointed when one of our number decided to use the PAG during the next presentation at full council and said there was nothing coming forward from the PAG to address it. I thought that was really disappointing and showed the lack of sincerity of some members when it comes to addressing the PAG issue, playing politics, not doing the real job. And unfortunately, Councillor Murray, that's where the line of opposition comes in. when people use this for politics. This isn't about politics, it's about doing the right thing for our locality. And I'm pleased that people like councillors like Councillor Murray, with the maturity of experience on this council, has taken that viewpoint. But there were other parties that haven't, and therefore when you act like that you're in opposition. Do you think it's time we had a new membership of the PAG and should ask the groups to relook again?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think it might be a good idea for other groups to have a look, see if they've got the right people on the group. There has been a few suggestions come forward, but I must admit it's been like blood from a stone, let's say, put it like that. And I know one or two people have sat in, they've listened, not really partaken, but I know Councillor Heap has, whenever he's been available, has taken part. And has made good contributions and questioned some of the decisions. But in some cases we find that people, what they don't understand is that small steps make big change. And we need to do those small steps. Every little bit that comes forward from a group member really gets consideration. And if it's a great idea, we'll take it forward. Even the silly ideas can come forward, but we will consider them, we'll look at them. And that's what the group is there for. It's to look at ideas, think of, is this actually in the interim and mitigation strategy? Is this a benefit? Is there something we can do that's going to be sort of nil cost to us? Can we drive it forward? And officers then take that away, think about it, and some of the ideas that come back from that engagement have been really encouraging. And yes, I do have a bit of a passion for it, and I can see that we really do need to drive this forward. It's at a critical stage, not only for us as a district and for London and the rest of the UK. This is a worldwide thing. We have to play our part. We have to do what we can to make those changes. And I think that of the group leaders, perhaps consider who's making representation for you. If you think that you're not making a valued contribution, then please approach your group leader and look change. We are doing our best. We are really considering and trying to come up with new ideas and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, I've got... Oh, Councillor Heap now wants to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Councillor Bedford is exactly right. A lot of it is small steps, but I would think that my main thrust in the meetings has been to think as big as possible and try and encourage as much engagement as possible. Yeah. But it's a worthwhile group, and I think many contributions have been worth it.
Good. Thank you very much, Councillor Heap. Members, I've got 2 recommendations before me. Can we agree those recommendations? Agreed. Thank you. Noted. Okay. Right. We then move on to the exclusion of public and press. To consider whether under section 100 in brackets A in brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press should be excluded from the meeting for the terms of business as set out below, on grounds that they will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in the following paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act as amended, or are confidential under section 100 in brackets A in brackets 2. This is for item 10, proposed letting of the second floor, the civic offices. Can I agree that, members? Agreed. Oh, hang on, Councillor Murray.
Yeah, Chairman, just before you move into part 2, which I fully understand the need to, I wanted to extend an invitation for you to scotch a rumour. I've had a rumour and an email sent to me that the civic offices are no longer going to be referred to as the civic offices, but the civic. Could you scotch that rumour? Because I think it's an appalling idea. Is it just something I've heard in the ether and it's a joke, or because I think to call the civic offices the civic is, well, I won't go off on one until I hear whether it's likely to happen or not. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I heard.
Councillor Murray, it hasn't been passed by me yet, but perhaps we could actually brand the civic offices and get some sponsorship. Maybe I need a full...
I'm not sure that's really reassured me, but it's something to watch then. Certainly I won't be supporting the name the civic.
I've been assured the address is the civic offices, but I have been told just now that the actual branding is the civic, but it's the civic offices is the address. So it's a branding, but I'm sure it will come to members to be looked at. Councillor Phillip, you look like you're pensive on the edge of your seat.
Chairman, I'm quite happy to leave it at that point at the moment, to say there's been nothing through
No.
the democratic processes to change the name.
Exactly. But I like the rumour cut. Yeah, you have. I take it you wouldn't like the idea of the Civic, Councillor Murray? Okay. Okay, can we move forward to exclusion of public and press? Agreed? Brilliant.